Hello, guys. Okay, we are starting our next section, which is 7-7, and we're still factoring. This is factoring trinomials. But the big difference here is this has the a in front of x squared. So it's ax squared plus bx plus c. This is called standard form. But the difference is we've got a number in front of the x squared. Okay, so for remembering how to factor just plain old trinomials, we always check for the GCF first. There's not a GCF here. Remember, we do the product sum box. Okay, so we've got, this is understood to have a 1, which will help us as we go. So we do 1 times 45. So we have 45 and 14, because we have the product and then the sum. Okay, product, sum. This is the B. This is the A times C. And then we want to know what two numbers multiply to equal the top, add to equal the bottom. So this is going to be 9 and 5. So this is going to be x plus 5 and x plus 9. Next example. And then if you want to check, you can multiply them back and you will end up with the correct answer. Okay, looking over here, no GCF. So we do the product sum box. So we have negative 28 and negative 3. And so that's going to be 4 and 7, but I need a negative 3. So that's going to be a negative 7 and a negative 28. Okay, so therefore I have n plus 4 and n minus 7. There we go. All right. Next, this is where we have a GCF. So I have a GCF where I have to divide by 2 for everything. So that means I end up with a 2 on the outside, and I'm left with a squared plus a minus 12. And now I'm going to take this trinomial and I do the product sum box, or product sum x, whatever you want to call it. I call it a box because I think of it as being inside of a box, what I'm doing. So I have negative 12 and 1. So that means that's going to be 4 and 3, but I want it to be a positive 1. So this has got to be a negative 3 because I have to have a negative number because the 12 is negative. So this means I have, don't forget the GCF on the outside, 2 open parentheses, a plus 4 close parentheses, a minus 3. This is my final answer. And the last one over here. Again, I look for a GCF. I'm only going to have a number, so I divide everything by 4. So I have 4 open parentheses, p squared minus 6p plus 5, product sum box. I'm jumping ahead of myself here. I want this to be a different color. We factor the trinomial, so I have the product sum, which is 5 and negative 6. So that's going to be 1 and 5 add to get 6, but they both have to be negative, so I can get a negative 6. So my answer is 4 open parentheses p minus 1 times p minus 6. This is my final answer. Okay, the process that it does here, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the steps for you, but I'm not going to really go that way because that's not the way that I work the problems. So the blanks here, it's slip A to the end of the trinomial and multiply by C. So that's just filling that in. Now we're going to go through and I'm going to work the way I do using the product sum box. Okay, so when I do this, for this trinomial right here, I start by product sums. Remember, it's A times C. So that means, all right, it's here, we'll write this part over here. So when we have the X, it's A times C because it's the product over the sum. And then this is B. So therefore, this is 2 times 3, which is 6. And then my B is 5. So I need 2 numbers. So I'm going to have 2 and 3. Now what this does is this, now I create my factor box. I know it's a bunch of factors. I'm sorry, bunch of boxes, okay? When I'm looking at this, okay, this is the product sum box, product sum. Now we have the factor box. When you're creating the factor box, okay, for right now, it's going to be a 2 by 2 because that's what we're creating, okay? This is always the first term of the trinomial, and this is always the last term of the trinomial. So when I'm looking at this box right here, I'm going to put 2x squared here, 3 here. These two are the factors that you find. Factors found, which is this right here. So when I'm looking at this, this is going to become, and it doesn't matter which one you put where. So this is 2x and this is 3x. And I could put 2x here and 3x here. So now I've filled in this. So now I factor each column. So at this point, we now factor GCF of each column and row. And let me show you what that means, okay? So when I'm looking here, what's my GCF? Both of them have an X, so I can factor out an X. When I'm looking at this column, 2x and 3, there's not anything, but I can divide everything by 1. So I would take out a 1. Okay, next I'm going the rows, 2x squared and 2x. So my GCF is a 2x. Here, 3x and 3, my GCF is a 3. So now what's on the outside? This right here is what makes up my answer. So my answer is going to be x plus 1, because that's a positive 1, and 2x plus 3, because that's a positive 3. This is my final answer. Now to check, multiplying back, and you should end up with your problem. Let's work another example, because I know this is new, okay? All right. So we have our product sum box first. So I have 5 times 6, which is 30. And I'm looking for GCF first, but they're not going to have any because I'm not overwhelming you right now. 30, and we have a sum of -16. I'm sorry, -17. So I have to think about my factors of 30. 17 close, so it's 2 and 15. And remember, you have the calculator trick to be able to, if you don't know the factors. All right, that's a positive 30, but that's a -17. So that means both of these have to be negative. So now I do my product sum box. No, this is the product sum box. Now I do the factor box. Here we go. So I have, excuse me, 5m squared, 6, and then I have -2m, -15m, and now I factor. This is going to be an m in this column. In the right-hand column, that's going to be -3. Because if one of them's negative, I know, because I remember we've got to be able to multiply it back. I'm going to show you that. I didn't show you on this other one. So 5m squared. So I'm going to take out a, always for the first term, we want it to be positive. So this is going to be 5m. Here is going to be -2. So when I multiply back, m times 5m gives me 5m squared. M times -2 gives me -2m. -3 times 5m gives me -15m. -3 times -2 gives me 6. So therefore, what I have on the outside is correct because I should be able to multiply it back and get what's inside. Okay, so this means my answer is m minus 3 times 5m minus 2. There's my final answer. Okay. Next. Product sum box. So I have 6 times -4, so that's -24, and -5. So I'm thinking 8 and 3. I just got to figure out which one's negative. The 5 is negative, so therefore the bigger one has to be negative. Now I do the products, the factor box. So I have 6y squared, -4. So I have -8y, 3y, and now we factor. So I have 2y. That's just going to be a 1. I'm going to make that, we'll make it a +1 because if I look down here, those are both negative. So since these are both negative, I know that I'm going to pull out a -4 there. That's a no-brainer. And this is going to be 3y, and I multiply back 2y times 3y is 6y squared, 1 times 3y is 3y, 2y times -4 is -8y, 1 times, yep, that works. So therefore my answer is 2y plus 1 times 3y minus 4. And there's my final answer. All right, next one. Product sum. So I have -5 times 12, which is -60, and I have 11. Oh no, 6 times 10, 3 times 20, that's not going to get me close enough. Oh, 15 times 4. 15 times 4, one's got to be negative. No, both of them. So no, this has to be positive. The 4 has to be negative because that's a +11. Okay, now the factor box. Okay, so I have 12c squared, -5, 15c. And notice these two terms take on the variable, -4c. And now we factor. So I have 3c for the left side, -1, because both of these are negative, but I can't factor anything else out, so it's just a -1. Here, this is a 4c, and here is a 5. So 3c times 4c is 12c squared, -1 times 4c is -4c, 3c times 5 is 15c, -1 times 5 is -5, so that works. So 3c minus 1 times 4c plus 5 is my final answer. Okay, I went through those fast just because before we have practice. All right, flipping this page over. We're going to do a couple of more of these that have different types of examples so we can see. Okay, number 5. We still do the same process. Okay, so I'm doing 4 times 1, which is 4, and -4. So that's going to be -2 and -2. And now we do the factor box. So this is 4a squared and 1. So this is -2a, -2a. So when I factor, this is going to be 2a, because remember, you always want the first term to be positive. So this is going to be -1. This is a +2a, and this is going to be -1. 2a times 2a is 4a squared. -1 times 2a is -2a. 2a times -1 is -2a. -1 times -1 is 1. So we're good. What we notice here is we have 2a minus 1 times 2a minus 1. This right here, the final answer, is actually written as parentheses 2a minus 1 with the squared on the outside, because it is the exact same on the inside of the parentheses. So this is the way that you write your final answer. Okay, a couple of more examples, guys. Okay, this is where we got to remember. Now we're pulling in, having to look for the GCF first. Okay, so first things first. Oh, they're all divisible by 5 for sure. So therefore, I can factor out a 5. 5, open parentheses. So now I have 5k squared plus 15k plus 7. So now when I factor, do the product sum, I'm doing this trinomial that's inside the parentheses. Don't forget the GCF. Do not forget GCF in your answer. Okay, so here we go. So I have 5 times 7, which is 35, and 15. So I have 7 times 5. Wait a minute. If I divide by 5, that's not 5, that's 2. I knew something was wrong. But that's fine. This is supposed to be 2, which means that's 7. But this is a 2, which makes this 10. Obviously, Mom, I'm thinking about my girls. Miss Wilson can't multiply. 2 times 7 is 14. And we end up with 14 and 1 that add to equal 15. Now we got this going. Okay, so now we have our factor box. So we have, and we use what's inside the parentheses, not the original at this point. So we have 2k squared and 7, and then we use these terms. So I have 14k and k. And now we factor. So the left side is going to be 2k. This is going to be a 1. This is going to be k on the top and 7 on the bottom. So therefore, my final answer is the GCF 5 times 2k plus 1 times k plus 7. This is my final answer. Okay, let's do one more where Miss Wilson's not necessarily losing it in the middle of it. Okay, looking at number 10. All right, I'm looking, they're all even, so my GCF is going to be 2. So I have 2 open parentheses, 16w squared minus 8w plus 1. We do the product sum, so I have 16 times 1, which is 16, and then negative 8. So that's going to be negative 4 and negative 4. And then we have the holes in the way. My product sum box, or my factoring box, actually. So I have 16w squared and 1, and then I have negative 4w, negative 4w. So now we factor. So I have 4w on the left, negative 1 on the right. 4w on the top, negative 1 on the bottom. So don't forget the GCF. So I have 2 open parentheses, and we check 4 times 4, 4w times 4w is 16w squared. Negative 1 times 4w is negative 4w. 4w times negative 1 is negative 4w. Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. So we know that what's on the outside is correct because it multiplies to get what's on the inside. So I have 2, 4w minus 1 times 4w minus 1. Now these are the exact same. Since these are the exact same, then that means my final answer is written 2 open parentheses 4w minus 1 squared. This is the way that you write your final answer. That's a lot of work. Make sure that you work these, ask questions as you go, rewind as you need it to make sure that you understand. You'll have a great day. Your assignment is to finish the notes and the classwork homework. Bye.